with your buckets, you're going to need to put some holes in the bottom of it. Any container, if it doesn't allow the water to come out or drain, thank you, you need to make sure it does, because otherwise the roots will rot and your plants just will not grow. Okay, so, and you want to do it if you're not a green thumb but you're wanting to and you're on a budget. Consider seed. You can grow, and it's fun growing a seed. It's really great watching it come up and then develop into a really good plant, transplanting it into your garden. So there's a lot of good fun in having seeds. Otherwise, get on Facebook. I know in WA, here or in Australia, there's lots of Facebook gardening pages where people like to swap and help each other, and that'll certainly help your budget too. Otherwise, go down to the garden centre and buy some punnets. So instead of buying pots of plants, buy them in punnets. I know that we sell lots like basil, coriander, mint, sage. There's all sorts of plants or herbs that will grow from punnets, and you usually in Australia, you usually get 6 to 8 plants in a punnet, and they're generally under $5 unless it's an advanced punnet. So it's a good way to do it. But check out your neighbours too; they may help you. And it's great to hear from someone in New Zealand. So now we're off to Kilmore, and Michael's wondering, what is the best to plant in my garden bed, and what feed do I give it? Well, Michael, I'm not sure what you want to plant or what you would like. If you are going to follow me, I love a garden full of food. I just want a food forest right through my garden, which produces beautiful flowers, edible things, and a great environment to be living amongst. So I love that. You might want to plant some natives in it, or even some exotics. Go down to your garden centre and have a chat with your local nurseryman or nursery person. You'll find that they'll be more than happy to help you decide what sort of garden that you would like. Take a couple of photos of the areas that you'd like to do, and maybe just, if you're new to this, just do one area at a time. So don't take on too much, and get a relationship happening with the local nursery people, and they'll certainly want to help you out with that. As for feeding, look, I promote all the time a good mineral fertiliser. It feeds the soil as well as feeding the plant, and that's a really important thing to do. So, and again, though, depending on what sort of soil you have, if you speak to your local nurseryman, they will give you some very good advice on what is best for your soil and for the type of plants that you're wanting to then feed. All right. So have fun with that, and maybe when the garden grows, you need to send in a photo and show us what you've produced. Natalie's from Melbourne, and she's wondering why the soil in lots of my outdoor plants is starting to go mouldy in the last few weeks. Yes. She tries not to overwater, probably watering once every 2 weeks, if not once weekly maximum at the moment. Should I repot all the plants with mouldy, soggy soil? Natalie, I'm sorry, but you are overwatering your plants. Now, if your plants are sitting in a very hot position and they are drying out, then you're not. But I would suggest, from what you've said to me, that you are overwatering them. Can I suggest to everybody, before you water your indoor plants, use your fingers, put them down to the second digit, and if you feel moisture, don't water them. They're still okay, even if they're dry on top. If they're dry, then give them some water, but don't overwater them by just watering them each time you go to the sink to have a glass and you think, oh, I'll give them a water too, because that mold tells you straight away that they're overwatered. You might want to try and dry them out, and the mold may go. but I suggest you probably want to go down to the local garden centre, get some good premium potting mix, or some even better, get some good indoor potting mix, and repot them all. I'm surprised that you haven't got bugs in your plants. Overwatering. Okay, Natalie, thanks very much and good luck with that. So we're off to South Australia, and Rebecca, why is my peace lily struggling to flower? Well, it's possibly that you're not feeding it enough. So let's have a look at what you are. Have a look at what you're feeding it. Feed it with a fruit and flower. Again, I really like Eco Vital. If you can't get your hands on Eco Vital, use a liquid fertiliser of some sort. Perhaps the partner to Sea Sol, which is Power Feed. That's a very good one also. And feed it up, because otherwise that's probably why it's not flowering, is because it's not getting enough fertiliser. It could also be if you've got it in a dark area. So if it's too dark, if you've got it inside and it's too dark, then it won't flower for you either. So now we're in New Mexico, New South Wales. Oh, I got excited then when I saw New Mexico. I thought we were also in the United States. However, we're not. We're in New South Wales, and Jody, I have an Athel pine tree that drops lots of leaves, and I have read the leaves. Read that the leaves make the soil high in salt. I have a garden not far from these trees. Some of my roses are struggling. How and what to do to help the soil and plants survive? Okay, so a pine tree is going to make your soil acidic, and the more pine leaves that drop, the more acidity you're going to have. And it could well be, I haven't heard that it makes the soil high in salt. I'm going to go and research that and learn something from you this morning if that's the case. But if it is, then the best thing you can do is each morning with your cup of tea or coffee, take it out and rake away those leaves. Get rid of them off the soil so that they don't penetrate down in and they don't cause the soil to be too acidic. A rose doesn't mind an acidic soil, so I would perhaps check to see how acidic the soil is. If it's a really old pine tree, it may be also that the roots are growing out into the roses, and that's why they're struggling. About the roots, not about what's happening on top of the soil, but rather what's happening underneath the soil. So it might take a little bit of looking at, Jody, before you can really get the answer for that. If you find that it's not the root system that you think it is, the pine needles, get rid of them and maybe take some soil down to your local garden centre if you don't have a pH testing kit. Excuse me, I need to cough. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so we're leaving New Mexico now, and we're going back to Victoria. And Maria, I have trouble with flax in that it develops white powder-like stuff just above the ground level on the leaves. Is it a powdery mildew, and am I overwatering? I would suggest that you're either overwatering or the ground isn't drained well enough for you. And it could be that the powdery mildew may be that you've got something that's sap sucking, and it most likely will be down in the very crevices of your formian, of your flax. So pull the leaves apart and have a look down. If you see a little white cottony thing, it's most likely mealybug, and that will come when you overwater. And then the powdery mildew will live in the sap of the mealybug. So I would certainly pull back on the water. Or after you've watered, give it a couple of days and see how wet it is still there if you're on retech. If you're doing it by a hose or by watering can, then just pull it back completely and that should help it. Don't need to treat the powdery mildew, but certainly treat the mealybug if that's what you've got. Mealybug is in the soil, so it overwinters in soil, and therefore if you don't treat the soil and you only treat the plant, it will just continue to keep coming back at you. So make sure that you treat the soil around the plant as well, and that should help a lot. Okay, Port Lincoln in South Australia, and Marie, I have lots of black spots on my lawn and it's everywhere. How can I get rid of them? Wow, I'm not sure what the black spots are. It could be that you've got a fungal disease, which is most likely what you've got. Without seeing a photo of it, it's really hard to tell, and I can give you an explanation, but you may waste your money on some sort of fungal issue when in fact it's something else. What I would suggest, that if it is a fungal issue, that you use something like Mangazeb Plus, and that will help. But what I would really suggest is either wait for next week and send us a photo so that we can look into it for you, and we need to see it up very close, or take some good photos up close and maybe a little bit further back also, and take them down to your local garden centre or to a turf centre and get them to diagnose it properly, so that we don't leave it and have some sort of problem and waste your money on product that you don't need to buy. Okay, so I hope that helps, Marie. I'm sorry I can't give you a more defined answer. So we're off to Port Broughton in South Australia, and it's Margaret. And I was digging in my garden the other day and uncovered over a dozen curl grubs. Oh, yes. I fed those to the chooks, but I'm worried about how many more might be in the soil. How should I treat the infestation? I would definitely treat them, because they're going to eat the root system of things. And if they spread to some of the other plants, look, I found them in a beautiful big pot of mine a couple of years ago, and they devastated the plant that was in there. So you do need to treat them. Go down to the garden centre and in your neighbourhood, and tell them you've got curl grub, and there are specific chemicals that can be used for that. Now, I don't like using chemicals. If there's a way of not using chemicals, I'll go by that. But in this case, I think you're better to get rid of them. Either that, or you're going to be replacing a lot of your plants, and that's more costly. Just use the chemical as it says. Don't overuse any chemical at all, and then we can feel much safer. Okay, so let's hope you get rid of those curl grubs. Hannah is in Adelaide. Please tell me why my hedges are developing holes, empty spots in them. Well, there's all sorts of reasons why that could happen, Hannah. It might be that you've got some sort of bug, like it could be a cicada, a cricket, and they're eating away at the plant to the point where the plant then can't survive that. And so it will stop growing in there, and that branch will die. Now, whether it's a cicada or whether it could be that you've got an infestation of something else. And I think you need to look at that because that's generally what it is. It could be if it's certain things, like I know that this year the heat and less water on the agonuses, we found they were really grey looking, and they were just dropping different branches all the time too. So it depends on what the plant is to actually what it might be. I would also consider that you might even have something like borer. So have a look at the trunk, have a look at the branches that are dying, and see if you've got any little holes in those, because that's what it might be too. And I'm sorry, again, Hannah, I can't give you a defined answer, a definite answer, unless I know what the plant is and we get to have a look at it. So once again, perhaps take some photos, go down to your garden centre with it, or send them in to us, and we'll address those next week. Don't forget to get your photos in by Wednesday so that we've got time to get those through and be able to get a good answer for you and get it sorted by next week. So it's near the end of the hour. It's gone really fast. I hope that we've given you some good answers to your questions and that you've gained something out of it. Let's take a look now at some of the highlights. It's unfortunate that Garden Guru's show is finished for the season. I know I'll miss it, and I guess there's a whole bunch of you out there that are going to miss it. But let's take a look now at some of the highlights from the last season of the Garden Gurus. Enjoy.
to arranging dahlias, I don't think there are any rules. Just mass them all in together, different colours and different forms. This one's heading straight for my dining table.
From April onwards is the perfect time to be planting your brassicas into the garden.
Something very special has happened in Melbourne, Victoria that I wanted to share with you. The first Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show in 2 years.
There's so much to love about Collectors Plant Fair. It's Disneyland for gardeners.
Good to see you. What a job you've got.
Oh no, I'm pretty lucky, aren't I? I'm so privileged. I can't believe I've managed to be director of the WA Botanic Garden.
Here's a tip. Tree and hedge cuttings should be processed fresh rather than when they're dried out and hard.
I'm at the magnificent Perth Zoo. Visiting some of the relatives perhaps? Maybe.
That was fun, wasn't it? I can't wait for next season. So we've come to the end. Don't forget to hit the like button for us, please. And we're very sorry if we didn't get to your questions today. They're just coming flying at us, and I was trying to answer them as quick as possible. But don't forget, I'm back next week, and just put them back up again, and we will answer as many as we can for you. We really appreciate all the engagement that we're getting. Look, Sarah will send you through, for those of you that have our seed winners for today. After the show, she'll send those out to you. I'll be back next Monday after another session, for another session at least, for the Garden Gurus, live at 12 o'clock Australian Eastern Time and 10 o'clock for those in WA. Don't forget to get your photo submissions in by Wednesday. It really helps us. And remember, put your state and name and suburb on all of the questions, and that way it's much easier for us to direct the answer to you. Remember, you can always jump onto our website and catch up with previous stories from the Garden Gurus at thegardengurus.tv or our YouTube channel, thegardengurus.tv. You can listen back on today's live stream and catch up on previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast and Audible. We'll be returning in the spring for our next season of the Garden Gurus. Meanwhile, keep an eye out on the socials for the updates. Happy gardening, everyone, and have a wonderful week. See you next week.